Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So today I'm speaking with Bobby from Bobby's Perspective. You guys asked me to collaborate and we finally made it happen. So thank you, Bobby, for stopping by. And maybe my first question is your name Bobby? Because that sounds like an American name. So I'm just wondering, you're from Macedonia or Germany, but why the name?
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you very much for having me. Bobby is indeed a nickname.
Okay.
My real name, I'm not gonna expose on the internet, so we just stick with Bobby Risto. That's my nickname on the internet. That's how I'm known online. For confidentiality purposes, for security purposes, you never know. There are many psychos out there, so I'm just gonna stick with that. I am originally from Macedonia, that is correct. So maybe some people can count one and one together and guess my name. But yeah, online, Bobby Risto will be the name.
I have a company and one of my employees is from Macedonia and we also call him Bobby. So I think I know your first name if you're Macedonian, but I'm not gonna expose it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start with some sort of background. So my question would be because you've been a YouTuber for a while, right? So when did you first start getting into YouTube and what was your content about before looking, in veganism or Christianity or any of that?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't consider myself being a YouTuber, even though I've been doing it for 5 years by now. So every time I get recognized somewhere, I got recognized in Europe, get recognized in South America, I got recognized here in Asia as well. For me, it's always very strange. So I don't see myself as a YouTuber. I see myself as myself just talking online. The reason being is this is how the channel came about. Because 2014, I left Germany to travel the world and I went to Australia. One thing that was really missing during that journey was my friends. Because before that, I was hanging out with my buddies 24/7. And we used to have those really, really long talks. So now traveling the world, I would just meet random people in hostels and whatnot. And we would just talk about my experiences, be it psychedelics or whatnot. And during that time, many people told me, hey, man, you like to talk. You should really open up a YouTube channel. And so the YouTube channel started as a compensation, so to speak, out of loneliness, almost, if you will, just me traveling the world alone and just sharing my perspective with the world the same way that I would do it with my friends. So to this very day, the channel is still called Bobby's Perspective. And no matter what I am interested in, I simply share with the people the same way that I would share it with my buddies. That was the motivation. However, it started, I have to say, right away with raw veganism and travel, because I started traveling the world, as I said, and I dived into veganism and then raw veganism. And back then, I really believed that I found the holy grail and the missing link, so to speak. Religion was outdated for me personally back then. And I believe that through diet, we can change who we are, or rather return to our natural state. And this is only done by eating raw plants. That was the admittedly crazy ideology back then. And so this is the perspective that I shared in the beginning before I dived into other topics.
Yeah. How did you enjoy being a traveler? Because I used to be a travel vlogger or blogger, let's say, and it seems good, but it's like I'm so happy I'm not doing that anymore. Like always packing, traveling. I didn't really, after a while, after a few years, it's like I want something where I can just know what's happening the next day, like some stability, especially if you have like a family, maybe. So like when did you kind of stop moving around that much?
I stopped moving around that much roughly 3 years ago, but it just slowed down. So before that, I would be just moving around every couple of weeks. And then I went back to Europe roughly 3 years ago, and we just settled for a while on the Balkan. So we stayed in Macedonia, we stayed in Bulgaria for roughly a year. And then we moved again because we just didn't want to stay there anymore. So we needed something new, me and my wife. And then we went to Portugal again for just 1 year. Then we went to France again for just 1 year. During the time we got married, got a child, and now I packed up my bags yet again with my wife and my child, and we moved back to Thailand. So travel vlogging or moving around too much, no, it's not my type of deal anymore either. But staying at a place longer than 1 year is very, very difficult for me. So we will see what will happen next year.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I guess your perspective is also you were brought up in Germany, right? But were you born in Germany or how did that happen? Like, are you
Yeah,
German by birth or?
By birth, yeah, I'm a German, so to speak. I'm born in Germany.
Hmm.
However, I didn't have the citizenship until I was, I believe, 21 or so.
Really? Okay.
This is how I dodged the military. So yeah, but yeah, German citizen, born there. However, we have a house, a flat in Macedonia, and in Macedonia is basically the rest of my family. So in Germany, I had my parents and my sister, but everybody else was in Macedonia. So we would visit at least once per year or even twice per year. I lived in Macedonia for roughly a year straight as well in our flat down there. And I always identified as being Macedonian, basically. I even
Yeah.
being born in Germany, never felt German. So I have some German friends, I have many foreign friends. I've been accepted by the Germans. I didn't feel discriminated or anything on those lines, but I simply never felt at home.
Hmm.
And after traveling the world for 5 years, I went back to Germany and looking at the German architecture. I get to appreciate it. It's really, really beautiful, but it's just not mine. You understand? It just doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel in my home base down there. I feel like I'm visiting the Germans, which is a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to do, but I never felt at home. So in Macedonia, I would always feel much more at home until I got into the political drift of what does it mean to be Macedonian, Bulgarian, yada, yada, yada. That's a story for another podcast. And since then, I got declared the public enemy #1 in Macedonia and didn't feel too much home in Macedonia either. So I guess Thailand is my home right now.
Nice. No, I get that perspective. For me, it's a bit different because I was brought up in Slovakia. I am Slovak. I always wanted to
Mm,
leave because I thought, oh, it's just like Eastern Europe. But we're kind of advanced Eastern European countries still. Like
sure.
the difference between Slovakia or Czech Republic and Germany is not that big, but you can still see communism and all these things that happened here. And then but I feel home here. Like I feel like I belong here because I'm here. I don't have any other kind of like background. So, but I guess if I would be
Right.
brought up in the UK, then I would always feel like Slovakia is where's my family, my language, my culture. And now I feel
Right.
even worse because I kind of like people think I'm a traitor, similar to what you explain, like if you embrace Islam as like Eastern European who like our whole history is fighting Turkish people as well. So like it's like, man, you kind of you're a traitor. But whatever. I mean, that's another discussion, but I share
No,
your.
not necessarily. I wouldn't say it's another discussion. I think it's very, very important for the viewers to understand as well that coming from the Balkan, it is pretty divided. So you have the Balkan Slavs, so to speak. So be it down there with Macedonia, Serbia, Bulgaria, or even upwards to Croatia, etc. And the religion is Christianity. So that can be Catholicism in the case of Croatians. I don't know how it is with the Slovaks. Is it Catholicism or is it
90% Catholic. I was Catholic, but I mean I
Catholic?
wasn't very like into it, but I mean everybody's
Sure,
Catholic.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody is super into it. I was
Yeah.
the first one in my family to get really into it and then find out the details, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, that being said, there is a clear division what you are and what you are supposed to be, what you can be as a Slav, right? So as a
Yeah.
Balkan Slav, you're Christian, and then you have the Muslims, which are Albanian or Turkish, and
Bosniak
then
as well. Yeah.
maybe some confused Bosnians, right? That
Yeah.
like they
I
should
mean,
be Muslim. They shouldn't be Muslims. That's a perspective. They should be Christians. They are like us. They speak our language. That's the perspective because religion is seen as something cultural, especially on the Balkan. It's
yeah.
very, very strict. Yeah.
No, I understand that. I mean, here, kind of like Northern Slavs or whatever we are, it's a bit different. We never had this sort of like huge battles amongst us with Poles or Czechs, but the
Mm,
problems are Nazis or Russians here. It's like we're always kind of occupied by someone. So,
right.
so we don't have this kind of like Balkan, let's say, nature, but it's pretty much the same. Like when I was in Sarajevo or Bosnia, it was really shocking to me to find out like everybody's Muslim and like mosques are calling the adhan and then everybody speaks Bosniak language, which I can understand. Like and 50% it's
Yeah.
kind of similar to Slovak or Serbian. And it's like
Right.
subhanallah, like that's my people, just like they are Muslim. Like it's so weird. I wouldn't, and it's just few kilometers, it's not that far away. But here
Yeah.
it's like zero, like no one's Muslim here. So yeah, it's pretty strange to have this like dichotomy of having like Slavic identity. You're also like, let's say, digital or nomad or modern person, but also then you kind of are spiritually somewhere else. Like what? You kind of like feel confused. You don't know where you belong, I guess. But yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the nature of today's world, I guess we're living in. So my question would be like, so you started with the vegan content and then you I guess, returned back to sort of Orthodox Christianity. So my question is, why did you even felt the need for that? Like, did you always kind of were searching for God? Because I was a complete atheist. I didn't care
Mm.
about God or religion, and it was a complete coincidence that I kind of stumbled upon some of the content. But like, what was it for you? Were you always kind of concerned with the truth, or realizing like what's life about, or what are we doing here? Or
Yeah, so since I can remember, I always believed in God. So even as a little child.
Mhm.
And for me, it was always important to know. I think I'm not special in that case. Kids always ask, what's going on? What
Yeah.
is life? So I always had those deep questions and I was never satisfied with the answers. So I always had to do my own work, basically. And no matter what was presented to me, just seemed, as I said previously, outdated. So I was searching further and further and further and further until I stumbled upon psychedelics and shamanism, Buddhism,
Mhm.
Hinduism, so Eastern mysticism specifically. And I dived into mushrooms, ayahuasca, even went to Peru to drink ayahuasca and brew ayahuasca, which is a shamanic visionary brew
Yeah.
in the Amazon jungle of Peru and in Colombia.
You threw
And
up,
to
or
I actually didn't. I
oh,
actually didn't. Everybody around me did, and they were crapping their pants as well. Wasn't very pleasant to be around, but yeah, I somehow did not. But I had the visions, and the visions, they basically can be very, very tricky because such a spiritual experience is not meant for everyone. And if you receive it without any formal training or guidance, it can infuse the ego with believing that now you're better than everybody else because now you have those spiritual insights and everybody else is tapping in the dark. So I started looking at the world as somebody that is now enlightened, quote unquote,
mhm.
and the rest of the world, they're tapping in the dark because they still believe those fairy tales of the old religious books, right? And for me, religion became something that is made for the blind masses because they don't have the true spiritual connection that the former pagans had because they got conquered by the Christians, right?
Mhm.
Or by the Muslims as well, as I found out later on. And this tradition has been completely removed from the world. So basically, the real spiritual knowledge was removed, and now we are left with this pseudo spirituality, which is Abrahamic faiths. This is how I saw it back then, right? But yeah, that being said, it was simply me searching for answers. And for a while, I felt good with it. I thought I really found the Holy Grail. I really thought, wow, now I know much more than anybody else. But this knowledge was somehow so empty and unsatisfying that I just kept on spinning my wheels and I kept on searching, kept on searching, kept on searching, ultimately ending up in moral relativism. Because those spiritual insights, they lead to the conclusion that there is no God, there is no hierarchy, but everything is one. So everything is one, and we are the universe, and everything is just a big mishmash of cosmic dust. And so you are the creator of your reality. So basically, you can do what you want.
But
Right?
that's not necessarily only you can achieve to that perspective. I had a similar one without the psychedelics because that's
Sure.
very popular today to claim this, narrative that we're all just one consciousness, kind of looking
Right.
into each other and, and all that. And I guess those
Yeah.
psychedelics give you that real experience, but that's a very popular kind of opinion to have nowadays. If you don't want to be
Absolutely.
religious, but want to be like spiritual.
Spiritual, not religious. Exactly. Yeah, that was exactly it, right? And back then, I wasn't too much into reading books at that point when I was doing the psychedelics. So I thought that all of those insights are brand new. And I
Mm.
thought I reinvented the wheel, basically. Now I know it all and nobody else does. Later on, I came to the conclusion that that is absolutely misled because, yeah, this experience has been done a billion times before. And as you just said, nowadays there are plenty of people that have this perspective of being spiritual and not religious, right? So yeah, ultimately it led to moral relativism where I thought I can do essentially what I want. And I found myself in a even more, from this day's perspective, sinful state of mind, essentially, where I was just doing exactly what I wanted, just following all of my desires and justifying it by telling myself that I'm the universe. Wow, that's awesome. I can do whatever I want. And as long as it feels good, it must be right. So that was my perspective back then. But yeah, it led to a deep, deep unsatisfactory state, essentially, to find myself in. And when I returned to Europe, to Bulgaria, I was surrounded by all the Orthodox churches. And I felt this huge pull towards religion out of a sudden. And I asked myself, how can that be, right? But I felt lost. I felt completely lost. And all of that knowledge that I downloaded from the universe, so to speak, was empty. Like nothing was fulfilling at all. And
Mm.
this is when I went to the churches. This is when I started my research, started reading the Bible, started connecting with people. And this is how I found back, so to speak, to my initial faith, because I was baptized from birth essentially as Orthodox Christian. But that being said, this was the first time that I actually researched the religion, because I simply thought, okay, wow, I'm returning to God now, and that's it. I'm essentially submitting my will to God. I'm going to listen to God. I'm going to accept that hierarchy. There is a God above me. But with Christian Orthodoxy, I found out that there is not only one simple God, but he's a triune being, right? That is consistent of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yeah, and then I had to start to wrap my head around that information.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it sounds similar to me as well. For me, it was more like nihilism, depression, like real panic attacks, and just I was like taken to hospital. I couldn't figure out, like I was living like, let's say, good life on the surface, but I was so in dark, just not knowing what's gonna happen when I die. I couldn't like live anymore without that knowledge, because my worldview didn't answer that. It just said, oh, the universe will evaporate and like there will be black holes, and then that's it. Like there's no point in life. Like, and it's like such a depressing, if you really think it through, which most people don't, but if you really think through, like, okay, so there's really nothing. And moral relativism, yeah, it leads to like, okay, so I can do whatever I want, because like, well, there's no objective meaning to anything, right? And so it's such a dark place to go down that rabbit hole. It leads to like many, I would say, yeah, crazy ideas and thoughts. But fortunately, I was able to get out of that, because I then realized like being, at least believing in some sort of entity is actually more rational. Like, because I couldn't make that jump, but I then figured out, well, how could the universe begin from nothing, or just from some other universe? But where did that come from? And just always kind of looking at infinite chains. And I got really deep into cosmological arguments and all those contingency arguments, and studying like Kalam arguments and trying to poke holes, but I couldn't find out like all these other theories of string theory, all those things, they were like weak, like they're based on no evidence. It's just like theories, you know. But yeah, I mean,
but ultimately the atheist argument, quote unquote, is so problematic because they are making truth claims, right? Be it that there is no God, that is already an absolute statement. So if you deny that, then you're an agnostic, essentially. But if you're an atheist, you say that there is no God, you deny it, you compare God to a spaghetti monster, like famous atheists do. So if you really have that standpoint, then the question becomes right away, is that absolutely true? Right? And if it is absolutely true, that means there must be an absolute standard of right and wrong. And if you deny that and you say, no, everything is relative, yeah, well, then your statement is relative or what? So is that the statement then? Is the statement that relativity is true, which then becomes an absolute again? So as a atheist, you're just spinning your wheels. You cannot make any coherent argument because it's not founded upon anything. And basically listening to any atheist then is an absolute waste of time as well. Because if everything is just spontaneous evolution, it just came about by chance, okay, that means that your neurons are firing by chance as well, and it's just mumbo jumbo that is coming out that is not grounded in any type of absolute reality. So why would I even accept your opinion as something correct? I don't have to, right? So listening to an atheist essentially is a waste of time ultimately, and the atheist would have to admit that, because he would have to admit that no matter what he says is essentially besides the point. And moreover, what you said with nihilism and moral relativism, that you can do what you want. Yes, I found myself in that state as well, doing what I want. But if you really look into it, nobody is really doing what they want. They're not fully following their desires to the absolute, because they are afraid of some sort of consequence.
There's been
as well.
socially conditioned to obey the law or whatever. Like there are some restrictions you have in your mind that won't allow you to go fully, let's say, I don't know, have sex every day with 20 people or whatever you want to do. Like you won't do that because you still feel like, okay, I live in society, I have to do something. But from moral standpoint, there's nothing to hold you back, but it's just kind of your culture or something, you know.
Yeah, and especially if there is no life after death, the lights just go off, then you can have sex with 20 people. You can even go out and forcefully do that if you want to, because the lights go off. There is nothing. And it doesn't even matter if you die today or tomorrow or in 100 years, because the lights go off and nothing happened. So might as well go crazy. But nobody does it.
That's why they are obsessed with prolonging the life to like infinity and freezing up your brain. So they are afraid of dying because they don't want to admit that they will die. So they want to prolong this life. And it's like such a crazy ideas they have. But just to piggyback off that point, like there are implications of this worldview. Like you don't have to believe in God, but that has implications on what state of government should we have, how do we determine right and wrong? All these core, like basic questions will be influenced by the decision not to believe in God. Because if you believe in God, well, the implication is the God is all knowing, probably. So we should kind of look at what the knowledge is. And if that's not the case, then you want to kind of find out the truth. How you do that, I mean, you can go in utilitarianism or different modes of thinking, but still, I mean, that's, so you have completely two different, it all goes back to the basics, you know, like where is this coming from, this everything, you know, the knowledge and everything. And yeah, I think that's why the question about God is so important, you know, because
Yeah, of course,
the
because
foundation of
otherwise,
everything. Yeah,
yes, it is
it
the
will
foundation of
impact
everything.
the way you think, the way you eat, I mean, everything basically.
Yes, this is the foundation of everything, the foundation of our society. And this is why our society, our global citizen-esque society right now is essentially promoting the self through progressivism, liberalism. And yeah, it is again just following your own desires, allegedly having all the freedoms in the world. But which freedoms are those, right? You have the freedom not to get married, you have the freedom to have promiscuous sex, you have the freedom to consume certain substances that the government allows you to consume, be it alcohol or cigarettes, super destructive, so good luck with that. And you have the freedom to do essentially anything that won't further a conservative family structure, because that would be counter system and that would be so backwards and not progressive at all. So ultimately we find ourselves in a system that is progressive for the sake of being progressive, right? So what could be more progressive than already having LGBTQ activists running around everywhere? Let's bring them to the kindergartens, because that is even more progressive, right? Let's bring a tranny into the kindergarten and let them read out story hours. Or I saw something that was quite progressive as well. There was a chimpanzee costume and he had a plastic dildo in front of him greeting 3-year-old children. That was even more progressive than the tranny. So that's awesome, right? Let's just be progressive for the sake of progressivism, without any root in right and wrong. As long as we're not hurting anybody's feelings, it must be right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, progressive basically means just getting rid of any sort of tradition or values. That doesn't have to be even religious, just kind of getting rid of that to open up more freedoms. But yeah, I mean, that obviously doesn't make any sense if you think it through. Like some of the things we do today, like there's restrictions even on your freedom right now, and we all accept it. But maybe in 5 years, it won't be like that. And so yeah, it's a slippery slope, but I get it, because that's the conclusion of if you don't have God, like, okay, that's the only thing that matters, progressing. But even though we can tell, like, well, these things have been here since Roman times, like there's no progress here. These things have been discovered. These things are not new. Even the alphabet thing, which you've mentioned, it's nothing new, you know, it's been here for a while. So it's even been here in the Muslim countries. Like it's nothing like, oh, there's no gay people in Iraq. There are, you know, it's just like, it's not something you promote on public. Like everyone knows this, like, because it leads to kind of like, you look at the health of a society first in Islam and then the individual right. You do have it. You actually have quite a lot of individual rights in Islam, but it's not trumping, let's say, the overall health of society. So it depends where you live, right? Like I live in Slovakia, so all those rules in Islam are about society. I mean, I can't really do much with them here, but mostly I'm concerned with just practicing the basics, you know. And so yeah, that's my next question. So how did you come across Islam? Like, because I know it's like such a random religion, at least for people here. Like, did you watch the ex-Muslims or stuff like that? Well, because I did as well. But how did you get into that?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't random necessarily. For me, it was simply the enemy. For me, it was the opposing side. So, as I said, from the Balkans, we have this long history with the Turks, with the Ottomans. So, they were the other side. And then we have the Albanians, especially in Macedonia. I am very, very close to the Serbian border. So, we had a lot of refugees from Kosovo. And then basically the same thing happened in Tetovo, where I have a lot of family. And Tetovo, I don't want to make up
right? Tetovo, or
yes, of course. You have Tetovo in Bulgaria and you have Tetovo in Macedonia. So you have two Tetovos.
Nice.
But Macedonians are Hellenic, Alexandro, Macedonians, and not Bulgarians, of course. Yeah, anyways, that being said, in Tetovo, in the Macedonian part of Tetovo, I believe the numbers of Albanians back in the day were somewhat around 20% or so. And nowadays, it's, I believe, 85 to 90%. So I saw the rise in Albanians, and with that, I saw my perceived rise of Islam. And the Adhan, the call to prayer, was playing all day, and I just hated it. I said, what is this? Why is he speaking Albanian all day? Right, even though it's Arabic, of course, but I didn't know that. I thought it's just some Hodja screaming in Albanian and conquering my country, essentially. And I hated it. So for me, Islam was simply the enemy. I didn't want to know anything about it. Every time I would see a mosque, I would say, look at those rockets. Yeah, they're flying to the sky. Those are rockets. And if I would see a hijabi or somebody in a niqab, I would say, look at those ninjas. So I was completely opposed to it. And in Germany, it was basically the same. In Germany, it wasn't the Albanians, but it was the Turks, yet again. I come from the area of Cologne, Leverkusen, and there we had a bunch of
It's a huge mosque in Cologne, like a giant.
It's the biggest one. Yeah, I think it's the biggest one in Europe, right?
Yeah, they call the Adhan as well, and I pray there, and it's like a giant mosque. But Turks built it.
Yeah. I just passed by, but I never entered. And when they started building that, I said, well, now the same thing is happening here. Germany's lost as well, just like Macedonia. So for me, no, I hated it. And I had a bunch of Muslim friends. I never wanted to know anything about their religion, but I saw that they got into all kinds of troubles. So I'm not some angel myself here. I was involved in some dirty, shady businesses myself, but those guys really pushed it to the limit, man, at least from what I saw. Fights, prostitution, drug selling and whatnot. So there was a lot of things in and out of jail all the time. And I just associated that with Islam as well. So I thought, well, this is what the religion teaches them, to be aggressive, to be criminals, yada, yada, yada. And therefore, I was surrounded by Islam all my life, essentially, but I never looked into it. And as I said, I'm the first one in my family to really look into my own religion, which is Christian Orthodoxy. This is what we've been baptized with. And I'm the first one to actually explore the Trinity and the first one that try to understand it. So everybody in Macedonia probably heard of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But I talked to my father, for example, and I tried to explain it to him. And he said, this is the craziest thing I ever heard, man. What are you talking about? And I said, yeah, this is the Trinity and the Father and the Son, and they're one, but they're not each other, and yada. And he said, so this is what the Muslims believe in, man. This is the craziest thing I ever heard. I said, no, this is what we believe in. He said, and what do they believe in? I said, in one God. I believe in one God. That doesn't make sense. And also he discarded it. But that's the thing, because I actually started researching it and tried to understand it. This is when I really got fed up with the whole constitution of Christianity. And this is why I started watching those, as you said, ex-Muslims or anti-Muslims or whatnot, like David Wood and AP. And I got more confirmed, more zealous even within my own faith. And I thought, this is exactly what I was pointing out with Islam. Now it all makes sense. Those are the bad attributes of Islam. And Christianity is correct. Despite Trinity, this and that, it is the peaceful religion. And so I kept on watching those guys just to reaffirm my own beliefs. But watching those guys, after a while, yet again, I wanted to find out more and to research the things that they've said by myself. And whilst researching it, while researching my own religion, researching Islam, I said, okay, man, I will have to read the enemy's book. I have to read the Quran first to debunk it completely. And I will debunk it online as well. That was my plan. And then I will return to Christian Orthodoxy stronger than ever. But by reading the Quran, all of a sudden, things started clicking and my religion started making even less sense. Now we're here.
Yeah, it's like I told my grandfather, who wanted to be a priest. I told him, like, do you believe Jesus is God or Son of God? He's like, no, he's a prophet. I'm like, well, you're not a Christian, but okay. And he's like, no, it's cool, we can do this. Or my grandma says, no, there's just one God. Just remember this, Jan, there's just one God. I'm just like, I know already, but do you know this? Like, you don't believe in this, actually. Do you realize this? Like, my grandma or grandfather, they don't really, I mean, I don't know if they studied the basics, but it's not really taught in schools, and stuff like that. And so, Islam might sound weird when you look at the real application in life, like the hijabs and all that. But if you go back to the basics, it's quite solid. But Christianity actually had the same sort of rules. Like, there has been a very little difference between a Christian woman covered. I've been to Greece a few weeks ago, Orthodox, and I saw women covered in hijab, Orthodox Christians. I'm like, what? Yeah. What is this? They look like Muslim women. Or I was in Republika Srpska, part of Bosnia, Orthodox, and like women covered only eyes, and Christian women. I'm like, what is this? That's pretty crazy. You know, they have much more
Yeah.
in common with Muslims than like some Christian in Germany who just celebrates Christmas, you know. It's
For
like,
sure, for sure.
it's so weird, you know. So basically,
My grandma used to wear hijab as well.
yeah.
But then my mother and that generation, because of communism, not any longer.
Yeah, communism kind of wiped out many of these things, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually a lot of things, a lot of rules go back to the same root, and it's just Christians don't practice it because they have such a low iman. I call it the faith in the own kind of like religion. I was a Christian, but I never kind of believed in it fully, right? I was just like, well, I'm gonna celebrate Christmas, go to church, and do all these things, but religion is not like my main like focus in life. Like I want to do something else, you know.
Sure.
It's just part of your identity. It's not like your main thing. And Islam is like, no, this is like the real deal. And you pray 5 times a day. You always remind yourself, you know, the purpose. So it's impossible to be like, you can be a weak Muslim, but then you can't even practice the basics. And the basic is the prayer. Like, so then it's kind
Right.
of strange, you know. But I've met many Muslims in Bosnia who are like drinking alcohol and say like, yeah, I'm a Muslim. So I mean, those things happen, of course. But it's so weird for revert like myself, who's like, oh, I found out finally some good religion and everything, so I'm gonna see how it's practiced. And I'm like, why are you guys dancing around celebrating Muhammad's birthday? Like, what is this? Where's this coming from? And then you realize,
Right.
oh, it's thousands of years of different like sects then. And but then if you just study the life of the prophet or things, like it's pretty clear. But now Islam, what's happening in the world, it's not really how it was back in the day, you know, maybe in Medina. But yeah, that's just
Sure, sure. No, that's exactly what happened when I got back to Macedonia, now with a perspective on Islam, trying to understand the religion. And then I went there and I saw the Albanians again, just driving past in their BMWs, convertibles, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, blasting loud music. And I thought, okay, so this actually has nothing to do with Islam. So I was thinking consistently that Islam is taking over Macedonia, but that's not the case at all. And this is not Islamic what they're doing.
Yeah.
By pumping some rap music, as I said, and being drunk. Like, obviously, that is not halal, that is not within Islam. And it's quite interesting to see. But what you mentioned there with as a revert, the way that you see those things, yes, it's quite fascinating because there are many reverts to Christian Orthodoxy in America. And plenty of them reached out to me and they knew more about my religion than myself or anybody in my family, right? And they were wondering as well that we are not that zealous, that we are not that practicing. But this is, again, it all comes down to the same issue with secularism. So it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Christian nowadays in many, many parts of the world.
Yeah.
It's just this cultural identity thing. And this is why I say that religion ultimately is between you and God. And you cannot base your faith upon how people that are in that religion by name practice that religion. It will come down to yourself, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's just one of the strongest Muslims I've met are all the reverts. Like we have a group here of Slovak Czech Muslims who hang out, and we have like, you know, we go together to mosques or something, even though we have like two mosques in the entire country, which are like hidden underground places no one knows. Because like if you display it, we have a lot of Nazis here. Like their idea is we protect Slovakia from Islam, and there's like 5 Muslims here. You know, like that's such a dumb, you at least have some minority, but we don't even have that, right? We are so Slavic, like just Slovaks here or Hungarians. We don't really have any Muslims. But there was this wave of refugees through Syria, right? So they were crossing our, and we were like, oh, this is like invasion. And there's been attacks on like hijabi women. It's like disgusting. Slovakia is the most anti-Islamic country on earth. We have the highest level of Islamophobia, and we don't allow Islam to be recognized as a religion. So like officially, let's say you would want to build a mosque and you have like 100,000 Muslims, you're not allowed to, because you need an official, need to be an official church. You need to have a signatures, like 50,000 signatures for it and stuff like that. So there's all these barriers because they say it starts with kebab and then, you know, what can happen? You know, all these stupid arguments from people who are not even Christian. Like, it's all a mess.
Right. That's hilarious. I always laugh when the Serbians call themselves the kebab removers because they believe they defeated the Ottoman Empire and they're the kebab removers. But just then to go on and call it chevap, right? So
Yeah,
great job, great job.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
But I
crazy.
didn't know that. Do you really think that Slovakia is more anti-Islam than Poland, for example?
Course,
Because Poland was
much more.
really wow.
Slovakia is number one if you look at statistics. And because we have no Muslims, like it's so weird. I would understand Germany maybe, but they are like very liberal. Let's say we are not liberal country, so it's like weird. I don't know why. Because all around us, like in Ukraine, thousands and
Yeah,
thousands of Muslims. Russia, you have Germany on the left side. Hungarians, maybe they have something, but we Polish and Czech, we have zero, and that's why we three countries are the most anti-Islam in the world. So, but out of those three, it's Slovakia because Czechs are 80% atheists. They don't even. It's like no God is there, so they don't really care about that much. But Slovaks are like still Christian, at least they claim to be. So we have
identified.
higher than Poland, I would say. But yeah, it's pretty strange. Pretty strange. Anyways, it's so weird. Like, my family, everyone knows now I'm a Muslim, and I talk about it all the time. I pray in front of my grandma, and I took my wife has a Christian parents, so I was like, let's go to Istanbul. So I'll show you some real stuff. And we went to Suleiman Mosque. We went to all the Hagia Sophia, all these places, and we learned history. And they watched me pray because her father works in Belgium, and he thought Muslims are terrorists and all that. And so he saw like niqabi women everywhere, just covered from head to toe in Istanbul. Like it's really Muslim there now. It's like, subhanAllah, it's like really crazy. And I was like, you see, so like these are normal people, like no poverty, no one's on the street. People are kind of like living their life. It's just more traditional. Women are not that much selling things because they are taking care of families, so they are not working that much in businesses, I would say. So he was like asking, where are the women? I'm like, they don't need to work 12 hours in a store. Like they're being taken care of. That's a responsibility. Like they have to be taken care of by a man completely. You don't have a choice. Like, and all these rules kind of like slowly I implement in my Islam, with my wife, who's a Christian still. But we're kind of like, I mean, she's kind of I don't know what kind of Christian she is. She believes in one God, I think, but it's like, it's a journey. But so we practice together, we eat halal, we do all the things, but she just doesn't pray, of course, because she's a Christian. But anyways, so it's possible to do it like a combo, Muslim husband, Christian wife, it's possible,
You're allowed, right? As a Muslim husband, you can have now you're allowed, I say, Islamically. You can have a Christian wife, you can have a Jewish wife, as far as I know. I don't think you can have any other religion, but the Abrahamic faiths you can have as wives, right?
Depends. It's quite weird, because we actually were together for 8 years, and then I converted, so it's strange. And I knew her family, everyone as like a Christian or or like atheist. And then I convert and it was like, ooh, this guy's weird. Like I'm like an entrepreneur. I have 2 companies. I'm not like let's say some guy who just got out of school. I'm 31. I got like some good stuff going on in my life. I just decided to be a Muslim, like out of nowhere. I don't have any like problems that I want to kill myself. Nothing like that, right? And it's been weird, that transition, but the biggest problems were the wedding, church wedding. We had to do Islamic nikah wedding, and all these things. But alhamdulillah, it worked out. And then you have to agree on the kids. So like the kids, will they be raised as Muslim? Well, the father, like they will be confused because they can't be both. Like you can't teach both things. So, but she said like, yeah, like they can be Muslim because like they'll get the religion from the father. She has no problem with that. So, but that means no baptism, all these things which are like culturally very huge here. Like that's the purpose to be a Slovak. You need to drink alcohol, be baptized, and do and hate everyone who's brown. That's like typical Slovak person, and I'm just going against those things. So my identity is kind of shambled, in that way. That I just have the language, I have the culture, I feel the country, I love the country. I think this is the best country, but the other part of my identity, I can't drink, I don't go to weddings. All these like baggage that we have is kind of haram for me now, which is the most difficult part. A lot of reverts, a lot of them fell out of Islam because of these things. But for me, family is cool, like no problem. So it's just doing dawah. I'm trying to kind of like show people things. But yeah.
That's very interesting. So your family has no issues with it, like your mom, dad. What did they say?
No, actually, well, I have a stepfather, so they didn't mind. They were like very kind of agnostic, so they were like, okay, just don't go to Syria and kill people. I'm like, don't worry. And then my grandma they were concerned, but since they are religious mostly, so they really like it, and they are always like, what should I do spiritually? How do I connect to God? They are mostly concerned with like, because they are like 84, so they are almost dying, always thinking about death. So it's like good to tell them, but they still don't do much with the information. I mean, it's up to them to. I mean, they are really old, it's different to talk to someone who's been communism, Nazism, all these systems now going at the end, telling them about Islam. It's like weird.
For sure.
Yeah, mostly it's fine. It's just, my father was kind of, but we don't really know each other that much. So that's not really that's
very interesting. With my family, it's complete opposite. So just when I started researching about it, for them was like, you're lost it now. I've been through many, many things, as you mentioned, but Islam is the no-go zone for our family.
Yeah.
My father already said, if you do that, I'm going to kill you. He said, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill everybody. I'm like, yeah, who's the terrorist now, bro? Relax, easy.
It was similar in the beginning, but basically after 2 years, since they saw a change in me, like I don't drink alcohol, I haven't touched for 1 year and 9 months. And this has been a huge deal in our country. Like there's a lot of alcoholism and problems, and even in my family. So they are like, man, Jan is really like strong here. Like, why is he so strong? Well, because of Islam. It's not me. I'm just following Islam. Or like, I don't have a mortgage on my house I'm trying to build now. Like, why is he doing that? Or like, I'm applying all these things and they are like improving my life. Like if you just apply the basics, like it's like, why would I drink alcohol or do all these things, drugs? And, Jan has a really strong morality. Like it doesn't deviate, like, let's say the LG and all that thing. Like we have a huge case, like 5 days ago, a guy went to a gay bar and killed 2 LG guys in the headshot. He was like extreme Jewish hating conspiracy guy who did this. And now everywhere rainbow flags, like all the state buildings are putting them out so that we support it. And I have a Slovak YouTube as well. So I just said, like, just because he did that, like his first target were Jews. First of all, Jews. He wanted to kill Jews, but he couldn't find them. So he went there. It was kind of a random attack, but it was like this Breivik guy in Norway, or these terrorists, these white guy terrorists, like
I know.
in New Zealand who killed the Muslims.
Christchurch.
These are the racist nationals, let's say white, sort of Christian. I don't know. He claimed to be atheist, but so now this LG stuff is like everywhere. It's so weird. So
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy myself, but sometimes I'm really wondering, because those random attacks, they lead to certain revolutions within society. So as you said yourself, there was one attack and all of a sudden you see all the rainbow flags everywhere.
He left like 60-page manifest of why he did it, and he has been I believe he's been psychopath, someone who doesn't feel remorse for someone else. So like he can't feel the emotion, so he can just kill you. And he even laughed and posted on Twitter. Like it was really strange, police couldn't find him, they were looking for him. So and then he killed himself. But anyways, besides the point. So so right now, where are you with Islam? So you've spoken with Sheikh Uthman and all these guys, because I remember exactly like you, I had the list of questions, like the most controversial topics you can think of, like Aisha and all these things. And I also spoke to people, and I had like, before I took my Shahada, I remember I had a notification on my phone, like take Shahada in 2 weeks. And I always pushed it. So I like, I don't want to do it. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to do Shahada alone with no one, because you can do it alone. You don't really need like no one there. And so I did it, and I'm like, okay, cool. So if I die, I'm okay. And then I was like, but that's not really, like, I should be able to say it in front of people. What am I scared of? And so then I did it like a month after that in front of like a group of guys. But for me, like 2 months before Shahada, I knew I will be becoming Muslim. So I started informing my family, like, hey, grandma, I'm researching this Islam, just get ready, And then I started practicing. So I would cut out the alcohol and I would start praying, even though I didn't know how to pray. So I would be like doing 5 prayers just randomly, and then I knew like the transition will be sort of difficult. So that was my kind of thing. And then after 2 months, I did the Shahada. It wasn't strange then to just continue that and go deeper. So So I'm just wondering, where are you right now? Like, how does it feel like after you spoke with Sheikh Uthman or whatever you're doing? Have you ever tried to just like pray, or have you ever tried just like doing that?
Just 1 second.
Sure,
Can you
sure.
please close the door? Can you just please close the door? Thanks. Was my son there at the door?
Yeah.
With my wife. Okay. Yeah, so I tried it. I tried to pray. I just watched a YouTube tutorial. Yeah, what else to do? Yeah, probably. I went through a bunch of them. And then I had some YouTube tutorials that claimed you have to do the Al-Fatiha completely, like you have to recite it. So that was obviously not an option because I don't speak Arabic and I couldn't do it.
You see, that's bad information right there already.
Yeah.
Because I started a Slovak dawa, and we teach people how to pray and make wudu, which is the biggest problem. When you convert, you don't know how to do this, and every person claims they do it right, and it's not correct sometimes. So it's like,
yeah,
it took
I
me
believe
6
that.
months just to figure that out. 6 months I learned Al-Fatiha and how to do wudu properly, just like making sure I'm not doing some weird stuff, you know.
Yeah. God knows what you're doing. Exactly. So that was my issue. So I tried it a bit just for myself to see how it feels. It was very, very strange for me because yet again, I had this mental image, this association that bowing down with your head to the floor, that's only what the Muslims do. So for me, that was forbidden completely. I have to do the cross, right? And yeah, that was really, really huge. And to this very day, I have to say, I have this anchor in myself to do the cross. So for example, before entering a airplane, it's an automatism almost to do the cross because that's what I used to do, right? So there's certain things like that that are definitely ingrained in my being.
I had the same thing, the cross. I would do it
the cross,
everywhere. But it just went away after 2 years. I don't have that reflex anymore, and I do now the Islamic stuff more. So I go somewhere, something happens, I say like Alhamdulillah, or I say like Subhanallah. I say something, I do something else, you know.
Right.
So yeah,
there was one thing. I don't want to diverge too far, but in one of my psychedelic experiences in the Amazon jungle with ayahuasca, I experienced what I perceive to be a spiritual attack, right? So take it or leave it, people can believe it or not. For me personally, it felt as if I was attacked by some sort of entity during that trip. Again, some people will say that's just a hallucination. Be that as it may, it's up to interpretation. But during that spiritual attack, quote unquote, nothing helped, right? And I found myself in eternal darkness, essentially. And the only way that I could come out of that back then was by doing the cross. And like that, this thing was lifted. So therefore, there is a strong association to this cross that I'm still carrying with me. And I believe that this is one of the reasons why I haven't converted, right? Because with the core message, I said it plenty of times on my channel, with the Tawheed, the pure monotheism, not only do I resonate with that, but this is how I've seen life forever, since I was a kid. So until I found out about the Trinity, this was a new concept to me. So the Trinity was much more foreign to me than the Tawheed. Hearing the Tawheed, okay, there is one God and nothing else is worthy of worship, I was like, yeah, duh. Obviously, that's what I was believing all the time. So now when it comes down to Muhammad, I had my questions, as you just mentioned, be it Aisha, be it wars, conquests, etc., all of those things I needed to understand. And that's not even the holdup per se. I would say that for me personally, the biggest holdup is that I experienced and experimented with so many things throughout my lifetime, and I jumped to conclusions very, very quickly. That I am now at a state in my life where I'm 35, I am married, I have a son, that I cannot do that any longer. I have a responsibility that is much, much bigger than it was ever before. So to just jump into something and decide, okay, I'm going to be this now. What happens if the same thing reoccurs that has been reoccurring all throughout my life, right? Because as you mentioned, again, I went vegan. So after a while, I quit veganism. Orthodoxy, found to orthodoxy, now kind of dropped out of orthodoxy. So now people might think, oh, this guy is very inconsistent. He's just jumping back and forth. Now there's certain consistencies that I have in my life. So for example, I started working out in the gym when I was 16 years old. I keep that to this very day. Jiu-jitsu is a big part of my life. I keep training every week. I'm there at least 4 to 5 times. Good nutrition. I still keep my nutrition in check. So there are certain consistencies in my life that I always keep up and certain character traits that I keep up. But there are movements, experiments, substances, even religions that I tried, and then in the end I drop out of it and say, yeah, well, that was at first appearing like the ultimate truth, but ultimately it wasn't. And I don't want that to happen with Islam. And for that, I have too much, I don't want to say respect because that word has been used so often, but I do appreciate the way that Muslims handle themselves, and I do appreciate the religion, the way that it is perceived, and the way that it is preserved to this very day. I do not want to be the person that gets into the religion and then comes out of the religion at the other end and then claims on YouTube, hey, I'm ex-Muslim now. That would be absolutely horrible, and I don't want it.
I did a anti-Muslim video when I first started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How?
I went even on ex-Muslim podcast because, like, for me, it took 2 years to research Islam. So I was 2 years in and out. I understand Tawheed and all these things, like you said, but I had this like block, like what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, like this is not part of me and stuff. So I had the same sort of problems with besides the cross and that experience, let's say, but still I had some of my things. So I understand completely. And for me, I would have this moment of like I believe Islam is the truth. Like I had this moment and it happened like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. It was during jogging. I was just jogging and I had this moment, like everything cleared. And I'm like, okay, there's Fitra, there's Tawheed, there's Allah, there's Jannah. Like it makes sense. Like, what am I doing? And then I would ignore that and I would carry on. So like another year would go by and I would be still like drinking, smoking weed, doing like stuff like living like a not, let's say, someone who's in this mindset, but I would have Islam always on the back of my mind. I would have this fear, like when I convert and I leave, first of all, Islam is not something you just go and go back. Like it's supposed to be for life, ideally. So like if I do this is gonna be the biggest decision of my life because it's gonna impact my life. So like definitely don't want to rush it. But also like I can't wait forever because Islam can be studied forever and you won't finish it because there's so many like interdisciplines within Islam. You can go so in depth that's crazy, you know. So for me, it took a lot. And then after 9 months of just jahiliyyah, just like madness, I had this one night when I was completely wiped out drunk at the gas station, and then I listened to one sheikh talk about death and just all. Then it just kind of reminded me, like, what am I doing here? You know, like I'm running in circles trying to avoid this thing. And is there an alternative? Will I jump out? So I have to really be sure. Like, so I studied as well, all the other religions. I studied, you know, I wanted to be like, will I be an atheist again? Like, is that going to be an option? Not really. Like, it would, the only way I can be an atheist is if something can come from nothing. That's the only way I will accept atheism, which will, I don't think that's possible. Or, you know, I had this, so I had to really ground myself in that, like, I'll never leave because of atheists, or I'll never leave because of Christianity. I'll never leave because of other systems of like Buddhism or something. So, yeah, so it was like a process for me as well. And I couldn't find any alternative. I couldn't find like, what's the alternative? Is there any other way of life? You know, because you can be, I mean, it's not typical that there's a vegan Muslim, but that's possible. But is there any other way of life which will make me leave Islam? And I couldn't find it really. Like I was like, I don't think that's possible, you know. So after that, I just started living as a Muslim before my Shahada, and I went to mosque and I built a community of people around me, like from Algeria and different places. I was so scared, like the only white guy, everyone big beards, you know, just like, so I'm like, I was just so scared. It was so scary, but it's the nicest people ever. After a few months, I was like, okay, it's not a cult, or it's not like they don't want to kill everyone, and you know, and all these misconceptions were cleared. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then I traveled around to Turkey and Bosnia and all these places to kind of have my own stuff. But yeah, it's definitely a process. So I wouldn't rush it, but I would not also don't prolong it forever, because like you will get into this sinful behavior, let's say. And in Islam, there's like something like a heart. It's called the heart, and you can like cloud it with, let's say, the amount of sins you do. Then you have to purify it, and you purify yourself, let's say, with acts of worship or doing good deeds or charity. But you need that incentive. Like, why am I doing charity? You know, because it's not just for something, you know. But yeah,
now that makes perfect sense, especially the clouding of the heart that you mentioned there. I've seen that with myself, having faith and then doing something that is not according to God, and then just starting to justify certain behavioral patterns of yourself and discarding faith yet again. It happens very, very quickly. But the traveling that you mentioned there is essentially, yeah, what I'm where I'm at right now, because I haven't been to masjids. I haven't
Oh, I would
visited.
definitely recommend that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I wanted to do next. I'm here in Thailand at the moment. To my surprise, way, way more Muslims than I ever thought. That's
Yeah.
as well as something that happens when you shift your focus, right? When I was a vegan, I was seeing vegan restaurants everywhere.
Yeah.
And now, thank God, I don't notice them anymore. But what I see now is a lot of Muslims, a lot of hijabis, a lot of people in niqab here. And yeah,
Right.
they have even the biggest, I believe, Islamic center in Southeast Asia, where I'm at right now. So yeah, I definitely want to visit and see in real life, because otherwise, man, as I said, in my surroundings, especially now, nobody's Muslim any longer.
Yeah.
And yeah, it happens online basically with my research or reading the Quran, doing my thing. So I would have to see it in real life. That's
Yeah,
where I'm at.
same thing for me. It was mostly online, but now it's more real life. Like now it's mostly real life. But in Islam, there are, it's like a big cake, and you take a piece every time you take a bite. Let's say, because you can't have everything. Like I didn't include eating halal after a few months after Shahada, because it
Right.
was like too much. Or like you have a child, right? You have a certain situation. I had a girlfriend. That's haram.
Yeah, of
What do we
course.
do? We do marriage. But how? Well, the kid. So, it's just, there's so many, everyone has a different situation. So you have to kind of evaluate, like, what am I, doing? Because it's not like something simple. So yeah, it's just like going through, and then you find out something which is maybe not comfortable. So like we had a wedding and I bought a golden ring, right? And then I realized, oh, it's haram. You can't have a
The
gold as a
gold ring is
man.
hidden.
And I
Mm,
didn't know this. And I'm like, subhanallah, am I going to justify or because this is authentic hadith, there's no like school of thought that thinks this is like weak. Like this is pretty established for a man, a woman can have. I'm like, am I going to just disobey this? Like, can I do this? Like, no one's going to care. But then I was like, well, then I'm just bending religion to my own thing, right? So
yeah,
I had to make this decision. Every time I made this kind of like push to what Islam teaches, it made my life better. But it's always this uncomfortable, like, oh, I don't want to get into that. It's the beginning is very difficult, the first 6 months, because you need to learn the prayers and all that stuff. And it's like, it seems like the teaching is never ending, the learning, it seems like, oh, when is it going to stop and being like a part of my life, just normal day. And it's going to stop after like 6 months. Then you kind of reach a level where, okay, I think I'm kind of like practicing now normal like basics. And then I would get into, okay, what school of thought is like Salafi, what do these guys say? And all these nonsense I would just leave for later, because all these sects or whatever you want to call them, they all agree on the basics. So like you still have to do these things. So like
right.
guys who just jump into like, okay, I'm going to be a Salafi, or I'm going to be this guy here, and I'm going to follow this madhab, this school of thought. That's possible, but like you just don't know even how to pray. So what are you saying? And they have some
Right.
different styles between prayers, but mostly it's the same. So it's just,
About those uncomfortable things that you mentioned.
yeah.
So how about, God willing, one day you're a father, right? This is super uncomfortable to me.
Mhm.
I talked about it with Sheikh Utman a little bit, the circumcision.
Yeah.
So are you circumcised? Would you circumcise your kids? What do you think?
That's a loaded question.
It's a loaded question, bro.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm gonna answer for the child's perspective. I think we will do it because even my wife wants to.
Oh, really?
Even if you have a secular understanding of just medicine, there's an argument to be made, even if you don't, let's say, believe in God or whatever. But also there's an argument to be made if you're a Muslim. So especially, yeah. So I think we're more inclined to do it. It also depends, there's how safe it is and stuff like that. But I don't see a reason why not. But yeah, it's very difficult because in the beginning, like if I would be in your shoes, I would really have questions, because like if I do this and then I leave Islam, I'm a crazy person. That's exactly
Right.
my concern.
Exactly right.
So
Yeah.
right now I don't have that concern, because it's been 2 years, so I'm not like thinking I'm gonna leave or anything, because I've heard all the things why I should leave. I don't think I'm gonna do it, and my identity has been, let's say, cemented as a Slovak Muslim. That's the name of my channel. But I think, yeah, I understand the point. So those things, I wouldn't say they are the basics. I mean, it's your decision at the end of the day.
Sure.
And I don't think yeah, I can't really help you. I think you should speak with like Sheikh Uthman and all these guys, because it's not something I want to influence you by, because I don't think I can give you a correct understanding or whatever. Like, I just want to be sure that I'm just a guy on YouTube.
Yeah, same here, man. But as I said, I'm always transparent. I always just speak my mind, and I'm open with my issues, so to speak, when it comes
Yeah.
down to the perception of the religion. As I mentioned, for me personally, and as you said quite accurately there, what if I drop out, right? And then I cut off the dick tip of my child, and I went through life without circumcision, and I was happy the way that it was, right? And
Yeah.
he's going to hate me for that. So it's a big decision to make. You know what I mean? It has such a, yeah, strong implication, essentially. So
True.
this is something, this is a big hold up for me personally. I
I
will have
would
to come to
just,
terms with it
I would
first.
just say, like, let's imagine a scenario. Even if you convert to Islam and don't do it, it's still better. It's just like, it's still better not to do it, even though that's just me saying some opinion. It's not like official, but
Sure.
I like, for example, let's say you have a problem with watching porn, or I don't know, going with prostitutes, or you're addicted to heroin or something, which
God forbid.
I know. And so how do you do this? Like, how can you be a Muslim, right? And so, yeah, it's still better to be a Muslim and listen to music, like go to concerts or like take heroin, than not be a Muslim, and do these things. It's still better to at least do this and then try to clean yourself up, than trying to clean yourself up and then do this. It's kind of difficult. So I don't know. It's just all these, I had also some of these issues flying over my head, but I just figure like they're still gonna be there, like even if I convert, and I don't have to make it official, or I don't have to be like, okay, day one we need a circumcision, we need to cut down alcohol, all these things. Like, no, like there are Muslims who do all these things and they still
Yeah,
think they're Muslim. So like, look at the situation of the Ummah, right? You have to kind of realize that it's not ideal, but yeah, I mean, there's a, let's say, guide where you should get to, but yeah, I understand you have your own kind of situation, right? So that's why it's so
for sure.
difficult. Yeah.
And I understand your argument as well, that you essentially still will clear out certain things by becoming Muslim, and you have a different focus than on those things, and step by step you can get rid of them. For me personally, it's just this cherry picking, as you mentioned as well. What's with the golden ring? See, I'm wearing a golden ring, so this one would have to go, right? But other than that, again, if I wouldn't subscribe to circumcision or any other thing,
Yeah.
then I would say to myself, okay, why did I convert then? You understand? Because I can be technically a Christian and say, hey, I'm a Unitarian Christian. I don't believe in the Trinity. So I'm cherry picking there as well. And this is what I hate. I hate cherry picking. Either I accept it fully, you know
But
what I
I would
mean, or
just
I
say,
don't.
like, you don't have to decide that day one. You can still kind of go and explore different opinions on this issue within the Muslim, like, scholarly, I don't know, and decide it. So it's not the core of the religion. But there's been, for example, I had a friend who's like 60 years old, converted to Islam, police officer here, and he had a
Oh,
business making like interest rates, and like he would loan people and buy houses and flip them all and stuff like that. So like, okay, there's many people, many Muslims who will say, oh, riba, the interest, oh, that's
yeah.
fine, you can do it. Like, no,
Oh, really?
there's fatwa in Europe that is okay, you can do it. But then you look, no, that fatwa is for refugees, it's not for you, you're a rich white guy here. And the usury or interest is banned in Quran. It's not even in, and it's a sin. Allah says it's the only sin he will have a war with you on that sin, on that riba thing. So it's not something like, oh, it's just something. And I know many Muslims here who have mortgages and they feel fine, because yeah, it's like, okay, it's not a 5 pillars, but it's pretty, like, there's no second opinion on this except this like
No,
one weird fatwa. So, and
right.
this guy changed his whole business. He switched his business model and he made even more money after that. So he said, Alhamdulillah, because I was so apprehensive, because it's like I have a family, I have also a lot of things. And he had a son who was born as well, I think, in that moment. And yeah, it just, those things, I think it's, anytime you do something that's trying to get to that, let's say, line of Islam, it's gonna be better. It's just, yeah, it's uncomfortable in the beginning. I understand. So yeah.
For sure.
It is cool. So yeah, so I guess, yeah, that would be it from my side. Do you have any questions for me, or anything like that, or I think we covered a lot of issues.
We covered a lot of things for sure. For me, it was interesting to hear what your family had to say. For me, it was interesting to hear how you're perceived within your society, how you perceive your society now.
Yeah.
I guess a random question is, why don't you grow your beard, bro?
First of all, my beard doesn't grow well. It doesn't even grow that much, so I don't have genes like you. So that's my biggest problem, because I would start, but it just doesn't grow. So it doesn't grow at all here. So I'm just kind of like, there's an opinion which allows you to do this. If you like, let's say in Asia, like in China, people don't grow
Yeah.
beard because they don't
Yeah.
have that, right? So it really depends how you're able to do that. But there's also one opinion which says, like, there's many mosques, like in Bosnia, people are clean shaven everywhere, or in Turkey.
Right.
So you really have to kind
Interesting.
of go. Some people say
Many,
it's part, some people say this is like you have to. Some people say no, it's sunnah, and some people say, oh, it's like you don't really need to do that. So I would say most people say it's fard, like it's a obligatory, but on what level is it? Like those sort of evidences you have to look for. But I think like if you would convert, you're much more like, from that perspective, a Muslim than me. You know, like people look at you like, mashallah, you have a good beard.
yeah, I had that in Indonesia when I wasn't interested in Islam at all. So the Indonesians, because they can't really grow a beard, they would always say, mashallah, wow, I want a beard like you, bro.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
get it back then, now I do. And here in Thailand, as I said, we have many Muslims, but they cannot grow the beard either.
yeah.
How is it with like certain enhancements, so to speak? Is that haram? Because there are certain ways to enhance your beard growth. Would that be haram from Islamic
I
perspective, or
don't
can you
think
use it?
so. I
No?
haven't heard of any, so yeah, let me
Hmm.
know. I don't want to
So
inject
this
any like things in my
no,
body.
you don't have to inject it necessarily. No, it's called minoxidil. So that is like a hair growth gel, and you can use it for your face as well. And a derma roller. So a derma roller is essentially a cosmetic little tool, and it pokes little holes into the skin. It's a micro roller, so very, very little, and like that, it essentially stimulates beard growth, especially if you mix it with this minoxidil. There are good results with
Try
it.
it out. I'll try it out. And
Yeah,
next time you see me, I'm gonna be like Salaf, you know, like
give it a
proper.
go.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. Cool.
And another thing I wanted to know is, so you said it took you 2 years essentially from finding out till you converted, right? Because I believe,
Yeah.
almost at the 2 years mark right now. I started researching it in Portugal. My son wasn't born yet. Now my son is 1 year and 5 months old. Yeah, something on those lines. That's how long I've been researching it. When you converted, did you already finish the whole Quran, or how did it look like for you?
Yeah, I
Or did you?
finished. I
Yeah,
had a Slovak and English Quran. I have, where is it? I don't know where is it, but I have the clear Quran, which is like pretty simple to understand. So I had that, and then I had the Slovak one. So I finished one of them by the end. Yeah, I finished one. Like just read it, you know, cover to
yeah,
cover. But I haven't like reread it. I'm rereading it the fourth time now, but it's always like, depending on where you are in life, you can read the same thing and just see another kind of point there. So it's not like something
right.
you just read as a book, Harry Potter, you know, and just like, okay, there's a story. No, there's no story here. You know, it's just like jumps all over the place. So, but I read it before. I wanted to read it so that I know like what's happening. You know, I'm not gonna convert to
Yeah,
something
for
without.
sure.
And I would like highlight like anytime like slavery or something. Like, I would highlight all these things, and then I would just make like research on it and talk to people, you know.
Yeah, I did the same. I highlighted the good things, quote unquote, with green at first, and then the bad things, like you said, slavery and whatnot, with the red pen, just to compare them and what is outweighing the other. I did the same. And how about hadiths? Did you read anything before converting, or is this something that you dived in deeper after converting?
I have Sahih Bukhari, so I have the giant book. No, it's 2000 something hadiths. It's pretty deep. You will not be able to read all of them, I guess. It doesn't even make sense because some of the hadiths you can't just read. It's kind of for internalizing, and they're supposed to teach you something, you know, and stuff like that. So I read some, but I definitely haven't read. I think most converts who I know, they never read a hadith, like a book of
Right.
hadith. the beginning. Some of them, but I know a guy who's been like researching 10 years Islam, and he's read tafsirs and hadith. He speaks Arabic. How they still hasn't converted. It's like, subhanallah, you know more about this than me. You know, he goes to pray, he has a beard, and he's not a Muslim. I'm like, what? You know, it's like weird. That's weird to me, you know, like, but yeah.
That would be my next question. How about Arabic? Are you learning it? Do you speak Arabic? How does that work?
That was like on my list when I converted. I was like, okay, Arabic is the last thing because I know it's the hardest. I did learn the alphabet, and I did learn how to pronounce. So like when I see a certain letter, I know like, okay, this is like dal, and this is like, and how it connects. But it's so the styles of Arabic are so different. So you can find different, let's say, Arabic styles. So you have to pick really one that's like the most common one. And the problem with you or me is like, if you sign up for any Arabic class, they assume you know how to read Arabic, so they'll teach you Arabic, but you don't even know how to recognize this letter. So this takes me now 6 months just to learn recognizing of the letters, because the letter changes depending on where it is in the sentence, and it can be written in 7 or 8 different forms. But basically, once you memorize these forms, I just spend like 20 minutes a day. It can like, okay, I can read something, and then you can kind of read the Quran at the end. I think Arabic is like, yeah, it's good to know it, of course, but even if you learn Arabic, you can read the Quran, but you will not understand anything because you don't know the grammar, or you don't know the words, what it means. You just know how to read it. So then you need to learn the grammar, and then you need to learn the meaning of the words. It's a lifelong journey, I would say. So for me, when I want to sign up for a class of learning proper Arabic, but before that, I need to learn how to recognize the letters in different conditions, which I know by now. But yeah, and then pronunciation is like also a big, because even when you say Al-Fatiha, you say like with your European accent, you know, and that's fine, but like there's an Arabic kind of into it. And now let's say I learned the surah, like Surah Mulk, which is quite long. So I learned it in Arabic, and that's cool, but I still pronounce it like with my weird accent, you know. So people like to really learn it, that's gonna be.
I mean, after years, I still have a German Slavic accent in my English, so I don't know if I would ever speak Arabic with no accent. I think that would be quite challenging.
I think that's the last thing to worry about, but it is important because like in Bosnia, no one can speak Arabic. I think like people just, they are Muslims like me, like they know Alhamdulillah, all that, they know Al-Fatiha, but they don't know what the Arabic, because the Iman, when there's Jummah, the Friday prayer, it's done in Bosniak. So I could pick it up like, and that's important. We do here Jummah in Slovak language, so we can understand, but there's parts of the prayer where you have to do Arabic. But then when Imam speaks about an issue, let's say in society, he speaks in Slovak, and he does one in Arabic for students who are not Slovak. So it's like, it's good to have that, because then you kind of like, I went to Munich, to Germany, to a mosque, and it was all in Arabic, and that's fine, but I couldn't understand what was being said. So you'll have that disconnect for sure. I mean, that's it's kind of the nature of this, because, you know, Arabic is kind of the language that ties all the ummah, and learning it from our perspective is very difficult, you know, very difficult.
Absolutely.
We haven't been conquered by anyone, at least so far, so we don't have that background at all.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the biggest hurdles for the West, for Europe itself, because Islam comes with the Arabic flavor, a very strong one, and people associate it as something that is just for Arabs, or if you become Muslim, you become an Arab ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
We had conversions in Germany. Pierre Vogel is a famous one. So he used to be a boxer. He's a white German ginger guy. And then he grew out his beard, you know, he's a Salafi as well, start speaking Arabic, etc., etc. And it just seems like you changed ethnicities overnight, you know what I mean? And this is why it can be very, very scary for the Europeans.
Yeah, you don't need to wear sunnah clothes and do that and say Alhamdulillah everywhere. Like all this is like fake to me. You don't speak like that. Like just speak like, be a Slovak Muslim. That's a new identity I'm building. And we have Slovak Muslims. So we still keep our national food. We eat halushki, pirohi, like our national dishes. We just make them halal. So they have bacon. So we kill animal, but we take an animal halal and we make bacon that's halal, that's from beef or something, and we make it
Right.
and we say halal halushki, or we have goulash and all these things, and we do halal goulash. Like we don't have to eat
Right.
what's being eaten, kebabs and all that. That's not our food, so we eat that, you know. So you have to kind of build out the identity. Yeah. And even Salafis, you know, there's so many of them. Some of them hate each other, and it's like it's not that simple, you know. And I would not, these sects, I wouldn't even, it's not a sect, but I wouldn't recommend going into, okay, there's a difference whether Allah has a hand or not. Okay, let's discuss this. Where does this discussion lead? Nowhere. No one ever understood how to interpret these things. And it's like, it just leads to, I would say, bad blood between these things. And 99% of things are the same, but just like, what should we make of this? And it's always like weird point. So I don't know. I don't really get into that madhab battles and like refuting. I think it's like pointless, to be honest. It makes sense from a scholarly perspective, but like if people on YouTube are fighting, I don't think that makes sense.
Right. So you don't belong to any type of sect, or how would you describe it?
I mean, sect, I mean, you basically, you can't convert to Shiism. It's impossible. You have to become Sunnah for like Sunni Islam, I would say, because like Shia can only be someone who was Sunnah before. Like, how can you be a Shia it's quite difficult. I can't even understand that. So all the other madhabs, like you have like schools of thought within the Sunni Islam, which is the most widened one. I don't really particularly belong to any. I would say maybe like Hanbali, because I know Maliki doesn't pray with hands like that, but they do this. I don't pray like that. I pray with hands like this. So I would be humble. But this is like 99% of Muslims pray like this, and like Maliki pray like that. So both of those are valid, but I think, yeah. And I eat like fish or shrimps, stuff like that. So that's also like 3 schools allow it, 1 doesn't. So there was like a crocodile hamburger. I was in Munich. There was a crocodile hamburger. I was like, should I eat this? Is this halal? So I was researching like different opinions. Is crocodile, can it be killed halal? Like,
and what is it?
There's a difference of opinion of 4 scholars on it. So
because crocodile is awesome.
The golden rule,
I ate a lot of it in Australia.
Yeah, I wanted to eat it, but the golden rule is when there's a difference of opinion on some issue, you should go with the negative, so that you don't do the justification for something maybe. So I just said like, okay, I'm not gonna eat the crocodile. I'm gonna eat something else. So like, why would I? It's just simpler. Yeah.
Predators are not allowed to be eaten, right?
That's the difference. Some people say it's a animal from water. Some people say it's a predator. It's like shark. Some people, yeah, it's just weird. But there was a halal burger place then, so I ate normal burger. I don't need a crocodile.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a big shift for me because I haven't eaten pork in 20 years. So I quit pork when I was in my teenage years still. And this was because I was researching my own religion back then already. And I felt sick every single time I would eat pork. So it didn't work for me anyways. And I stopped when I was like 15 or 16 years old. So since then I haven't touched any pork anyways. So now halal would be another step.
Pork is quite big here, but I just don't miss it. Like when I eat meat, I eat chicken and then I eat beef. But as I said before, there are Muslims who eat anything and they just say Bismillah and they eat it. And I'm just like, what are you doing? It's not halal. No, I said Bismillah. Because like when you kill an animal, you say Bismillah. But I'm like, that's when you kill an animal. You are already eating it. It's not supposed to. But okay, they say, oh, this is not a Muslim land. We can do it. So there's all these things you can find, a wiggle room. But then like, okay, let's do it properly. Let's not fake this Islam, at least the basics. So like, okay, I'm gonna be a vegetarian for a while. So I eat a lot of tofu and stuff or shrimps. And then when I have I have a kebab store or I have a halal store and I buy like 2 kilograms of meat and I just eat it. I want to open up a farm with a friend who's Muslim as well.
Nice.
A farm where we do cheeses and eggs and everyone can buy it, but they're going to be halal. So yeah,
that's awesome. Are cheese and eggs not halal by default? Or is there a specific method for them?
Man, you can have a halal even bread, but those are really like advanced stuff. I think where I am, that's impossible to even live off. So halal means like killing. So like eggs, you don't have to kill for an egg or cheese. But I would associate halal with not sacrifice. How do I call this? The murder of the animal. But there are in the Or in Germany, I think you can find stores with halal cheese and all that.
Hmm.
I think that cheese comes from like an animal that was raised halal, but yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
just makes
Yeah, that would make sense.
yeah.
Yeah, because I just heard that vegetables
Or
are by
milk.
default
Yeah.
halal, and
Yeah.
just meat. That's where you have to take. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just stick with we don't have that possibility to have halal cheese or halal bread. I mean, that's impossible. So
Right.
I just apply that to meat mostly because that's the
Yeah.
big concern. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, man. Those were all my questions, basically.
Cool. So yeah, thank you, Bobby, for having this interview, and I hope we'll be in touch. And if you ever come to Slovakia or Prague or Budapest or anything like this here, so let me know, and I'd be
It
happy
would be
to
a pleasure.
show you some hidden spots. And then yeah, if you're in Macedonia, let me know because I have a team in Macedonia, and then I go to Bosnia. Well, I want to go there more often, and it's a beautiful country, and like Macedonia is quite close, so I would like to check it out.
I always wanted to go to Bosnia. This summer, I actually visited Macedonia, and I really wanted to go to Bosnia because of my research in Islam. But because of my kid, we couldn't travel too much at that point. Unfortunately, we didn't do it. Yeah, in the future, if I come back to Europe at some point, then I would definitely take your offer. 100%. I would love to check out Bosnia. Yeah.
Go to Sarajevo during Ramadan. That's what I did, and it was amazing. It's like you'll really feel the vibe because when it's not Ramadan, it's not. But they have iftar menu everywhere. There's a cannon above the city which shoots up when the sun goes down, so everybody can start eating. Everyone's
Oh, no
fast.
way.
Like it's really amazing. Like, and they are all like Slavic people. I was like amazed by it.
Yeah.
Like whoa, weird. So yeah,
Yeah.
good
Exactly.
experience.
I had some Bosnian friends. That's why for me it was weird as well. I didn't even know they were Muslims until we didn't see each other any longer because I
Yeah.
moved, and then I found out, oh, you're Muslims, but you're just like me. Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, it's really important also to visit the Museum of Genocide or just kind of learn about the genocide, because I made a
Srebrenica.
documentary about it, and it's like so horrific that my wife cried, like she couldn't take anymore what the torture that was done for in the concentration camps. You can see in Bosnia there, the concentration camps. It's like the most horrific. Like I think it's almost at the same level as the Jews in Nazi Germany. It's like disgusting what happened there. I can't imagine that it happened like 20 years ago. Like still
Yeah.
strange to me. But yeah,
Where can I watch your documentary?
you can watch it on YouTube. It's like genocide in Sarajevo or Srebrenica, something like
Srebrenica.
that. Genocide in Bosnia. So yeah, there's many videos from Sarajevo I've made. So yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna write it down and watch it later on. Genocide in.
Yeah, I think the country it's in a very bad spot politically and stuff like that, but it's beautiful, nature and people. So
On which channel did you upload it? Just
it's
so
on
I can
my
say it.
channel, yeah, but it was
Okay.
restricted on YouTube because there was like killing of bomb showing, and so
Right.
immediately it got restricted.
Of course. YouTube is like that sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, brother. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. Very eye-opening for me as well to see other Slavs, not only considering Islam, but actually having already converted to Islam. I'll keep that in mind in my further research. Thank you for having me.
Good luck with that. And if you have any questions or something, let me know. And I'll hope to see you in the future.
Yeah, God willing, man. Let's do it again at some point.